Greetings, salutations. Hi, I'm Try. This is attempt number 2. Now I'm starting to understand why streamers do their little setups and whatnot. OBS, which I used to record this, decided to forget that I had a microphone. So the recording was going through the sound input, or the microphone that's off of my camera. Which, yeah, I'm not that vicious. However, my recent experience was that apparently YouTube has not forgiven me for a 2-hour bloody video. Yeah. My last video, as the time of recording, got 16 views. So either people just didn't look, or YouTube said, nah, this guy's long-winded. Granted, I am, but my following video was like 25 minutes. Alright, let's get to why I'm actually here. Why is that? Oh, right. This is another one of my talking heads where I'm trying to explain parts and whatnot, but this is the one I probably dreaded the most. Because in our current era, this is the most expensive part of the build. That is if you're doing a computer build yourself. What is a GPU? It is an expensive piece of silicon, fiberglass, copper, aluminum, plastic. That costs way too freaking much. Okay, enjoy that. Bye, everybody. Yeah, right. No, I'm not that vicious. Okay, I am that vicious. I actually want to get this out. And since I already had to set up a mic twice because I didn't know it wasn't ready the first time, I can go back in the day and say this and be done with it. That, on the other hand, was actually not a GPU. That was actually before it was coined. The term GPU was coined by NVIDIA with their original GeForce card, or GeForce 256, I believe it was. And before then, we called them video cards. So you would find like Matrox, ATI, you even find like weird brands like Cirrus Logic, and oh yes, we cannot forget S3. There's a few people out there that know me well enough to know the S3 card was a funny one, because my first time moving out, I was using a nice Voodoo 3 from 3DFX, which was another main company, and it was being phased out, so the driver support was pretty horrendous. And I had to use an S3, which there was a running joke with the roommates I had that it was the F3 card, because it was the frantic, frustrating, unfortunately female didn't work for me, but I'm a long hair, so go ahead, make the joke, which happened to be a hentai video that all the roommates had watched and we laughed at because it was stupid. Anyhow, enough with dating myself, and also pointing out I had some weird hobbies too, but who doesn't? Okay. As we go back in the day, there was a series of technologies that allowed you to take, originally it would have been like a graphics adapter. So your computer would have like a number of slots, and you'd have your processor, you'd have your RAM, all off the motherboard. Sometimes you'd have a sound card. which I don't have sitting over here this time. Maybe another time. However, basically back in the day, you had your cards dedicated to certain purposes. And if you were gaming, your CPU did most of the load. A graphics adapter, which was the more office environment version of a video card, just basically gave you a display out. It had minimal amount of memory, didn't have a lot of push either, did some processing, not enough. Video card, on the other hand, allowed you to play your games. However, this was back in the day of 2D, so you're up, you're down, or up, across, so 2 dimensions, how this screen is actually displayed. Then came along, I believe it was either Apogee or id. I thought it was id originally, but correct me if I'm wrong, feel free. I'm not afraid of criticism, I've said this before. But somewhere between Wolfenstein 3D, or Wolf 3D, and Doom, a change started to happen. Suddenly a graphics adapter or the onboard video just wasn't enough. You needed to upgrade a little bit. So the video card was invented so that the CPU wasn't killing itself trying to push the graphics. And it would offload that data. Well, okay, let's run by a few years. And now you have 3D games, which now simulate a depth. And that's where this guy comes in handy. What I'm holding here is a 3DFX Voodoo 2, which has a beautiful 8 megs of RAM. It doesn't have the additional on the back, which would have given it 12. Sorry, if you notice up on top, there's like a little floppy bridge, which is actually what it was referred to as. It was it was a piece of floppy cable that someone cut that made a bridge, which was the cheap and easy way to do it way back when. There was a technology at the time called SLI, scanline interleave, which allowed me to take this card and an exact copy over to the next slot, bridge them, and now this card would do the odd number of lines on your monitor, and the other card would do the even number, spreading out the workload. So already it had taken the processing off of the CPU. However, back in the time this was needed, it was called a 3D accelerator. You needed a video card to be paired with this and the other card if you were going to do the SLI method. And it had a connector that went from VGA to the VGA in, and then this went to your monitor. Didn't exactly have a doubling effect. It had more like 30% boost. But back in those days, it was an immense boost. Put that down. I don't want to accidentally flail and throw it, because these are expensive. If I sold this, I could probably pay off my car, especially in today's economy. Speaking of that sort of thing, let's skip ahead, because we have NVIDIA, who acquired 3DFX when they made a lot of bad decisions and was going bankrupt. NVIDIA decided, hey, I like that idea of pairing the cards. But now, scanline interleave became scalable link interface. This here is a GeForce GTX 780 3 gig card. Little plastic cover here covers a set of what are called fingers, which, turn this around, you can actually see there's a little plastic peg, well, fiberglass technically, has a bunch of little gold contacts. It has the same on the other side. This allows you to pair cards, triple cards, or even times 4 the cards. So, SLI, triple SLI, or quad SLI. Yeah, you want to talk about power budgets. However, that was an NVIDIA exclusive. This was the AMD version. Up at the top, you also notice similar, different shape. This was called Crossfire. This was the AMD approach, formerly ATI. Yeah, I know, this conversation comes up again. I still have issues. I'd like to have subscriptions. Either way, these allowed you to take like beefier and beefier games as you went on. So, as these, I believe, are both 3 gig cards, and they really do 3D. So, 3D was right. I just had the wrong word for what I wanted at the time. However, this is the gaming side. What if you're one of those professional graphics editors? You do a lot of 3D editing, video editing, digital art and whatnot. Your graphics card will look probably more like this. Sorry. Or possibly it'll have a longer cooler, maybe twice the height. Kind of like this guy. But it'll be a single fan, blow through. And this is the Quattro. I have actually 2 of these running in the system that is actually recording this video now, and will allow me to process it and upload it a little quicker. These are, this would be the M2000. I've got 2 of the P2000, so Pascal. The Maxwell wasn't good enough. I actually have 2 of these. And needless to say, being a collector of random stuff, I can say that for a lot of stuff. Either way, if you want to play your games, more or less, even with, let's see, was this one of them? Yes, it was. Even in the age of these guys, I hold up this. This is not a CPU. This is an APU. This this combines, or is the combination. Combinates? Close enough. Basically, well, the gaming version with the CPU. It's not nearly as good because the memory on a video card is a whole lot faster. And this will steal part of your system memory to simulate that. So it's going to be slower. You're not going to play like the more modern games. This will not be running like your Baldur's Gate 3, your Cyberpunk. But if you want to play something older, this will be good enough. Of course, when I say something older, I'm still an avid player of Skyrim, Oblivion, not the remastered. I have to afford that first. As since this does not look like I'd be monetizing soon, not bitter, but please share, like, maybe even subscribe. Though I will admit, I am now getting to the point where I'm looking at my whiteboard and I'm going, I need to brainstorm some more. So, let's see. What are we going to need? You want to play your games? Sorry, my nose is itchy and I'm not editing. I one day resolve to learn DaVinci Resolve because I'm not paying for Adobe. Since I've never learned to video edit, my learning curve is actually ideal because that means I just have to start with one program. If you guys could recommend something that is open source preferred, that'd be a good idea for me that I can actually take time to learn, and maybe I won't do such long-winded one-take talking heads, especially with my ability to ramble and get distracted. Can't tell you how many times my brain has gone squirrel. And actually, my first time recording that, I did that several times, and that's how I noticed, sorry about the peak right there, but that's how I noticed that the recording peaks and whatnot weren't happening. So I had to scrap that video and restart it. Hehehehe. So, now you know what's a GPU. And I'm itchy. I'm not quite sure what my next video will be about. I'm intending to stick with the 1 week or 1 video a week cycle. Hopefully this video will get some more views than the last one did, because yeah, I do have to look for a job because I was let go from one. That's how I'm able to do these, because I have a little bit of free time. Yeah. I would like to actually do this as a full-time gig, possibly. To actually do something meaningful with this. I have one idea left, and it's a little harder to do because I would have to either show a desktop or learn to edit or something like that, which is the concept of what is an operating system, what is an OS. It's easy enough to tell you, like, well, there's Linux, but what kind of Linux? Linux Mint. I have an Ubuntu over in that rack that runs Pi-hole because my Raspberry Pi up and died. I know. Speaking of the integration of GPU and CPU, that's a weird one, because that's a system on a chip, SoC, and that's, you notice it's finally quiet. I learned to mute it. But the phone, SoC, where your GPU, CPU, and RAM is pretty much all one chip. Sometimes they have the additional, but it's all baked into one. Look at the Apple Silicon stuff. That's an excellent example of an APU, because that is your CPU, GPU, system memory built onto the chip, well, soldered onto the chip, and stuff like that. Better video editing stuff. Here I'm using Windows. I have an M1 sitting right over there. For once I'm pointing the right way. I know, scary. I might be learning. However, as I'm creeping up on 20 minutes, and I don't want to do these too long because that was excruciating. Hopefully this will give you a good idea of what these parts are. I may go into the more obscure or the more add-in. I may even cover the motherboard. I tried it once before, but I have disabled those older videos. So that might give me one more idea before I start asking for things that you people might want. Or, hey, there's a thought. What is something you think I might know that you don't understand that's within the computing world? That is the purpose I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make this so that the run-of-the-mill person who is not like genius IQ is trying to build something so that they can play their games and do all their programming and coding and whatnot. And no, what about the guy that just wants to play his games? Can't be bothered to learn what it is. Doesn't want to buy a console because, well, can't afford to either buy the console, can't afford to buy the games. And since, hey, you can get free games at least once a week from Epic, occasionally here and there from GOG, sometimes Steam has some hidden ones that are free. And plus, they have them on sale, and it's a whole load cheaper. PC gaming has a lot of perks. So, maybe there's something. I got a few ideas just as I'm thinking of this. Also, if you've noticed, I've actually moved the frickin' window over. It's starting to bug me having like black bar on one side and nothing on the other. I've actually moved it where I've sort of balanced it out. Mostly. It's like a pixel wider on one side because it doesn't divide evenly. But yeah, if you want something, and I haven't quite done a video yet, drop it in the comments. I actually want to know, what do you guys want to actually know what is? Make sure it's tech related, make sure it's computer related. Because I know I'd be opening myself for AMA horrors, and I don't want to spell it with a W. However, until next time, fare thee well.